and I'm so pleased to have invited Mary Priestley to our chapter meeting and to give a presentation. She's a well-known wildflower expert, and so several of our group have been on her hikes. And I happened to pick up this book, so the Essential Mack Pritchard, and I'm like, Mary Priestley, oh, she's local. And I'm so excited that she accepted our invitation to give a presentation. So without further ado, Mary?
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. This is the busiest group I've ever talked to. I mean, I've never seen so much. I'm glad you all took the time to stop for just a few minutes and come to this meeting. We're going to talk about Mack Prichard tonight, and I wonder, did anybody know him in this group? All right. Okay, good. Well, as we go along, if you think of things that you remember, interesting stories or funny or inspiring things, I hope you'll share them with us, because he was a huge inspiration in my life, and I think in many people's lives, and he made a huge impact. He was one of the 3 founders of Tennessee Trails. So this is a reason enough to celebrate him. I was looking on your webpage, and Tennessee Trails was organized in 1968. And Mack apparently wanted to start a trail system an official trail system for the state. And Bob Brown in Nashville was really tired of driving all the way over to the Smokies to go hiking and wanted to have some hikes closer by. And Evan Means of Oak Ridge was pulled in as well. So those 3 men really started this impetus for Tennessee Trails, which got going in the late 60s. The idea was to do the Cumberland Trail. And as y'all know, that's been a long history. But then all these different chapters got going, and the chapters got interested in their different trails in their area, and the whole thing, it just exploded, which was absolutely wonderful. So I think, if he were to look back on it, Tennessee Trails has got to be one of the huge successes in his life. I am going to read some of these slides, which I know is really you're not supposed to do, but there's so many facts here that I just don't want to miss. He was really a complicated human being. He was absolutely driven. He was a Presbyterian elder, and his faith was a huge part of what drove him into action. He was optimistic, which, he worked hard and fought hard, but he was hopeful and optimistic about the future, which I think is something that we really have to hold on to. He wrote poetry. He read extensively. He wrote extensively. He quoted people all the time. He had a whole slew of quotations that he would bring up, and he was absolutely real. I mean, absolutely real, which was just a pleasure. I think some of you all know Latham Davis, who wrote this book about my state park, South Cumberland State Park, a few years ago. And the way he described Mack, I just loved. Vision, eloquence, humor, persistence. Mack's influence in the protection of Savage Gulf and other sites in the South Cumberland equals or exceeds any other of his many accomplishments. Now, we're biased, but that was a huge thing in our lives anyway. Preserving Savage Gulf, Fiery Gizzard, and now the Head of the Crow. But if you look at a bigger lens, bigger than just our state park or even just our state, second to the land. Oh, and this is a quotation from Mack from the introduction to the state park's 1970 operational manual. So there was the manual comes out periodically, and he was in charge on interpreting nature to people. He said, second to the land, trails are the most basic interpretive facility. A well planned trail system leads the visitor right into the beauty of nature. And I don't need to tell you guys that, but he is just trying to explain it to his staff. If the trail system is well laid, its loveliness increases with the passing years. It delights its user with intimate bowers and ever-changing vistas. The best trails exploit a variety of ecological situations, from oaks to marshes, hilltops to meadows. And you guys have been on all of them, so you know exactly what he's talking about. This is a list of the parks that he is absolutely for sure was involved in. The list can actually be longer when people start adding other parks, but the documentation was slim on some of them, and I decided that if I was going to put this in a book, I would just keep it really minimal. So, like Tim's Ford is not in there, and if anyone could actually come out with, you know, documentation, I would love to put that in there. Short Springs, same with that. It's just records are not kept as well as you would think they would be about things like this. But anyway, this is a huge number. So a lot of our state parks, as you probably know, got started by TVA lands, and the CCC came along and developed a lot of the parks. And then Frank Clement in the 60s, he was our governor in the 60s, decided that he would implement the development of several more. So he got about 10 or 15 more parks going. So by the time Mack came along in the 70s, there were maybe about 30 parks. Well, 25 to 30, yeah.
Is that Hill Pond, is that Big Hill Pond State Park? Because I'm familiar with Big Hill Pond State Park, but not Hill Pond State
Yes,
Park.
well, guess what? I'm not familiar with either one.
Okay, well, there's
So-
a Big Hill Pond State Park near
I bet that's it.
West Tennessee.
I'm ready to bet that's it.
Okay.
And probably,
That's a nice park.
yeah. And so, see, if you're ignorant of a park and you just put down a name and everybody goes, okay, fine. And then you find somebody who knows the park and you so,
Yeah,
but,
we're camping there in October.
oh, okay, so yeah.
We've camped there.
Well, ask them when you get there. Is this the big? No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I know it's a big,
It's a big hill for sure, yeah.
and there's a big hill.
How big? You can tell us that too. So here's a map of those parks that were listed on the previous slide. Here's a map of them. You can see he was all over the place. I mean, you know, I felt like he was really right on the South Cumberland Plateau, but he was literally all over the place getting this done. Speaking of done, Governor Winfield Dunn married a Prichard. So Betty Dunn was actually Betty Prichard Dunn, which really worked out very well for conservation in the state. Mack was Betty's cousin, and he worked very closely with Winfield Dunn. In fact, when I was going through his correspondence, Mack saved everything, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. He would say, now Winfield, you said, now Winfield, I mean, it was just like he would just go push as hard as he possibly could, his cousin's husband, to do the conservation work that Mack felt sure that he had to do. But these are some pictures of Mack taking Governor Dunn down into Savage Gulf. And I'll be interested to see if Aaron brings the same pictures, because this is really important history. This lady right here, whose back is to the camera, is Elsie Quarterman, who was a biology professor at Vanderbilt, who actually did the scientific work to lay the base work for saving Savage Gulf. And then the Governor Dunn said, Mack convinced me to visit the virgin timber. I hear it's really great down there, at the heart of a potential wilderness area in Savage Gulf. I was impressed enough to push through acquisition 2 years later to establish Savage Gulf State Natural Area. And there's another couple of pictures of it. Did you get down to that iconic yellow
I
poplar?
have a picture of me in front of it. Right
Do
there.
you? I hear that did it fall or did it?
It's only this. It's not that tall anymore.
Oh, really?
It's just the base of it is there.
So if you get down this far, you're right on the creek, on the Savage Creek. And this is a really famous picture. That's Elsie Quarterman there on the far right, who the biologist who did all that work. And there is still no trail down into the old growth. So when Aaron comes in next month, just mention, that y'all would just love to help, because I really don't understand why there's not. And
We'll tell him that Mary Priestley said.
yeah, go ahead and tell him that.
He has the picture on his phone of the governor at that tree.
Does he? Does he? Well, and I think Aaron kind of halfway wants to put in a trail. I mean, think of all the beautiful places, many more beautiful places than I do where there are trails. And where there's a trail, almost everybody stays on the trail. And where we are now, we've got, it's off limits, and make your way down there if you want to sneak down there, and I don't know. But anyway, that's I'll put that on your to-do list. Okay. Okay, rivers, he was really very highly involved in the rivers, and y'all were just talking about Duck River, and there's the Buffalo, there are these wonderful scenic rivers that we have, and he was involved with the Scenic Rivers Association. Let's see, I love this. I suggested the name scenic so that families would not fear losing their kids to the wilds on some raging stream or river. And then Lauren Isley said, if there's magic on this planet, it is contained in water. And it is water, which of all things, yet wears away the hardest stone. No, that's not, which of all things is the most yielding, and yet wears away the hardest stone. Water which is always changing, yet always the same. Water which to the Indians was another word for life and the source of the variety of the state we enjoy, which is true. It's in charge of all the erosion and all the beautiful topography that we have. We have a show now actually at Sterling's. If y'all get to Sewanee before the end of this month, there's a show at Sterling's celebrating water and all of its various aspects for Earth Day. That's just a separate aside. So here's the tree, and you got your picture by it. Governor Bredesen had, by decree, or the legislature declared Mack the conservation conscience of Tennessee. This was when Governor Bredesen was in the governor's seat. Then he was declared the Tennessee's State Park Naturalist Emeritus when he retired. So he actually wasn't Tennessee's State Park Naturalist, he was the Naturalist Emeritus. He was replaced as the naturalist by Randy Hedgepath, and now Roger McCoy has that position, and both great guys. And then there's this more than 20 state parks and natural areas, because I'm reluctant to say any more than that. Member of over 50 conservation organizations, founding member of this one and several more. So here he is. Here's a little of his life story. These are some early pictures that his family gave me. And he apparently ran around, he was enamored of the Native Americans or indigenous peoples. Born in Dyersburg, moved to Memphis with his family, and would run around Memphis in what his sister described as Indian moccasins and Indian blanket around his shoulders, just, I guess because he was so enchanted with the whole thing. He helped at the Chucalissa Indian Village excavations in Memphis, and he was really involved in that. Then he had a life-changing episode that was pretty dramatic when he was about 15. There was an Indian mound in Arkansas right across the river that the owner of the land had agreed to sell to the highway department for fill for a new highway in, I know, just jaw-dropping, for a new highway in Arkansas. And there was a public meeting, and Mack got his dad to drive him across the river over there to the public meeting. Apparently he had all these notes, but he was sweating so profusely that he ruined his notes. So he had to stand up there, this little kid, and try to explain to the people how they needed to preserve this cultural history and not use it for fill, for a highway. The man who owned the property was in the audience and came up to Mack afterwards and said, "You are so right, young man. We are not going to do that." And it was saved. And he saved, that at the age of 15, which was a huge thing for him, and then sent him on to do more of the same. He was launched. So when Governor Dunn came into office, Mack had already been working for the Department of Conservation, which became the Department of Conservation and Environment. And Dunn made him our first Tennessee state archaeologist. So he made a list of all the archaeological sites that needed to be saved, and one after another started down the list to preserve and make these archaeological sites. Also in '71, Governor Dunn established the State Natural Areas Act. And really it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to us, we'll tell you that Savage Gulf was the very first one of those. If you talk to those Nashvillians, they will say Radnor Lake. So whatever. Anyway, they both got saved, and it was in the early 70s. So Mack spent a whole lot of his time meeting with groups of people and putting people together. This was one of his real talents that he had. This is a group of people involved in the Friends of South Cumberland. He's got a slideshow, which is typical, his carousel. He's showing us slides, he's telling us stories, he's making us feel gung-ho about conservation. Here we are, and really some of y'all might be in this picture. This was we established a Mack Prichard circle with the Friends of South Cumberland. People who were particularly, I think, gave a certain amount of money per year to be in the Mack Prichard circle, hiking in Mack's tracks, which is what we said. And it was really fun to honor him. He's getting a little older there, on the far end on the front row. But this was our Mack Prichard circle that we had at South Cumberland. But the thing of it was, he was doing this all across the state. His former supervisor at TTAHR said, "The first time I gave a program on state parks, it was at a meeting in Johnson City. I went into the meeting with my carousel of slides and met Mack coming out. Sorry to be in such a rush, but tonight I've got a program in Memphis," he said. Anytime he could get the message out, he would go. So here he is, just crisscrossing the state, absolutely driven, meeting with groups. And then John Froschauer said, presentations, these are these carousels of slides. Presentations were painstakingly assembled, and like medicinal Navajo sand paintings, were often quickly dismantled only to be rebuilt for the following evening's show, which might be clear across the state. Using, and look at this, this should be against the law. Using a slotted piece of wood set on his dashboard, Mack would sometimes put them together while behind the wheel en route to the program site. Yikes. Yeah, glad we didn't meet him on the road, right? This is Bob Fulcher, who was the first manager of the Cumberland Trails State Park. And so John Froschauer on the previous slide was one of the people who wrote an essay for this book that I put together. And Bob Fulcher is another one. And he really talks about Mack's facility in this. He says, Mack's facilitation of mergers between recreationists and environmental advocates brought protection to spectacular critical resources. Mack Pritchard's tally is unequaled for hands-on accomplishments through midnight rides inspirational photography, straight talk, and the power of positive mergers. He put people together. I was a big friend of his, and so were so many other people, and he just kind of put us all together and worked his magic. Randy Hedgepath, who replaced him as the Tennessee State Naturalist, wrote in this book, Mack told me many times that there's a lot of gloom and doom we need to know about, but to hold people's attention, a bit of humor or an amazing fact should be added to the text or talk. And anybody who's heard Randy talk has heard that, all that. And a lot of that, of course, is Randy. Things we could do to help should also be there, so the audience would feel inspired to go out in the world with purpose and determination, a call to action. And he really was inspiring us to action. Ann Tidwell, who has been very active with the Friends of Radnor Lake, said, once Mack was actually fired for insubordination. Later he told me, they can fire me, not pay me, take away my office, but they cannot stop me from speaking the truth to everyone who will listen. He was absolutely determined to get his views about conservation out, no matter what. He believed in the sacredness of the land, and he really spoke in terms of the land and part of creation and God's work here. He was, as I say, he was active in the Presbyterian Church, and he walked the talk. He really did. Believed in our natural heritage and our cultural heritage. Had a deep respect for fellow human beings, and I mean, he called beggars on the street in Nashville brother. You know, you might give him a coin or a dollar or what, and he would too, but then he would say, have a good day, brother, you know, like that. And then the importance to human beings of natural areas in which to roam. Parks are for people, he said. Parks are for people. They shouldn't be just closed away and not have people actually invited into them. And then beauty is a common thread that binds us all. He gave a talk to the association that's in charge of the interstates, and talking about signage along the interstate and how you should eliminate as much of that as you possibly can, because driving down the highway should be an aesthetic experience. He disliked what he called the juggernaut of progress, population, he made that one up, pollution by too much population, channelizing streams, that is straightening them out to get the water on off the land, damming the rivers, and clear cutting. He was absolutely flat out opposed to all those. And he died about 6 years ago. He died in Cookeville, and before he died, though, he set up this Mack Prichard Foundation and picked people he wanted to have on the board, and I was one of the people chosen. So and there's the two of us, and I really, you know, I got on this board, and I knew that Mack had asked me to be on the board, and so I thought, well, I would like to put together some of his writings. And years ago, years before this, I had asked his permission to use a story of his in something else that I was writing. And he said, years ago, "You're the wordsmith." So I decided, well, if he thinks I'm the wordsmith, then that kind of gave me enough courage to put his work together and pick and choose the pieces that I thought would make a well-rounded anthology. Well, so I announced that I wanted to do this, and there was more stuff than you can imagine available. Letters, memos. He always carried these little spiral notebooks in his pockets and was always writing stuff down. He wrote many articles for the Tennessee Conservationist and other on archaeological work, on the cultural history. He wrote for other journals, speeches, essays, notes, and he saved everything. He made copies of his letters. I think he knew that somebody at some point might try to put all this together. So anyway, we were blessed with all of this stuff. And so we had all this, and then different people collected it. His house was an absolute rabbit warren, and unfortunately, a lot of books were destroyed from the moisture, but a whole lot was saved, and pulled it together, sorted it. There's a good deal now of material at the State Library and Archives. There's a lot of material at MTSU Library. Those are the two main collecting places. I had about 5 people on my editorial committee that helped me picking and choosing what to put in. I wanted to put in every single mean letter he wrote to TVA. And I mean, they were just so good and so angry and everything. And I thought, oh, everybody wants to read this. And not necessarily, so I think there might be one. But so the editorial group was great. And then there were several people who wrote essays that are in the book describing different aspects of his life. And then Latham Davis, who I think some of you know, designed the whole thing. And we called it the Essential Mack Pritchard. Writings of a Conservation Hero. And it's for sale for $15, and I brought some copies if anybody would like to buy one. This is one of the kinds of things that he said that are in the book. Talking about wilderness. Wilderness gives you a perspective so you can measure the great changes in civilization, as we call it. See, civilization as we call it. Without such biological controls, we don't have much chance to see the difference. We try in our conservation efforts to hold on to some of these unique places where we can measure ourselves against the masterworks of the eternal. This is a selfie that he took using a camera where he set it on a timer. And I don't know how many times he had to try, but he did, and apparently he did make the leap. He made it to the other side. But anyway, great photo, so we put that on the front.
Don't try that at home, though.
Right. Be careful who you follow on these hikes. So I arbitrarily, we went through all this. There was all this stuff, and we didn't go through it all, but we went through a lot. And decided that there were 5, I would divide this arbitrarily into 5 sections. It can be done many ways, I guess, but this is what we did. And I felt that man of faith and family should go first because it was kind of the basis of what he did. This is a note that he saved, maybe one of his parents saved, that he sent them with clippings about his talk that he gave over in Arkansas. So when he gave the talk and saved the Indian mound, there were several newspapers that put articles in about that. So he clipped them out, sent them to his parents with this note. My dearest mother and dad, thanks to you both, I got the right, loving start in life to be able to do what is listed here in these clippings. God bless you both, and thank you, always for what you mean to me with much love this Easter season. Christ is risen indeed, and all creation blooms with life. From Mack. This is a 15-year-old boy writing his parents, and how beautiful, and that I think speaks a lot. He was interviewed one time by the Nashville Tennessean, and had been called an environmental evangelist. And he said, that's a way of saying conservation is the essence of stewardship. The Bible teaches it, yet we've turned Mother Nature into a sewer. We've forgotten that we are not only our brothers and sisters keepers now, but of future generations as well. Greed is killing us. The earth can provide for our need, but not for our greed. So he was really very outspoken. I mean, he did not mince words. This second section of the book is kind of a conglomeration: student, teacher, mentor, and critic. So talking, up the line to maybe his bosses, talking to people, students, young rangers underneath him. This is another piece from this chapter on interpretation. Maintaining parkland is half the job. Helping the public to best enjoy it is the real task of nature interpretation. Over 100 years ago, Thoreau prophesied that in wilderness is the preservation of the world. The basic role of state parks is to provide these vitamins of wildness, not wilderness. Trails belong to the greenhorn and woodsman alike to come in and discover their secrets. Trails are thus the most basic park development, and they yield that premium experience, solitude. And there he is as a kind of a chubby young man leading a group. Another section of this book is the storyteller section. He wrote a beautiful piece just as Savage Gulf was coming on line as the first state natural area. The saving of the Savage Gulf natural area is a great accomplishment. What remains is to comprehend its true meaning. The green oasis offers to the weary soul a refuge from urban noise and busyness. Its diversity and stability are sources of wonder and strength to all who understand. This is land in the bank for generations yet unborn who will want an unspoiled earth. So, and then there were a couple of articles that he wrote for the Scenic Rivers Association newsletter, and we can't document whether or not they were actually published, but we had his copy of it. But anyway, this is another sort of outspoken. I remember when there was no Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association, and Tennessee was becoming the best dammed state in the USA. He was opposed to damming rivers.
Was he opposed to it?
Damming up rivers.
Oh, yeah, right.
Channelizing streams. He didn't like speeding the water off through the, straightening the streams, and he didn't like damming the rivers. And,
What do you thought about TVA damming the Tennessee River?
well, I would say that you would have to chalk it over with him, but I know.
There's a lot of good reasons for doing it.
Right.
Chattanooga would flood every year.
Right. So
People would die.
Right. So, and really for the good of the state, you'd have to. But he honestly.
Oh, yeah, the Tennessee River's used for navigation.
Oh, right. Yeah. And with the locks and everything, I mean, we couldn't do without it. But anyway, that's what he said.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe he's talking about the duck and the elk.
yeah, maybe that's what he was talking about, the duck. Let's say that's what he was talking about. But when he was in college, this just shows sort of how much confidence he had. Kennedy had been elected but not inaugurated yet. So early in January of 1960, I guess it was, or 61, he decided he better write the incoming president of the United States. He was a sophomore in college, anthropology major. Dear Mr. Kennedy, I write you this letter in exasperation, but with all sincerity. 2 ideas have troubled me, and I would submit them to you. Briefly, they are, in picking the experts to work with you in your administration, don't forget the anthropologists. Also, why can't we have a government-sanctioned youth group for peace? And of course, Kennedy did start the Peace Corps. So I don't know where that idea came from. I'm almost 100% sure he did not have an anthropologist in his cabinet, however. And then here he is talking to Aubrey Wagner, TVA chairman. Your emotional charge that people like me, the Tellico Dam was, this is what he was on the subject of. Your emotional charge that people like me who oppose the Tellico Dam have rocks in their heads prompts this long letter to you. As Parks Naturalist for the Tennessee Department of Conservation, I have traveled extensively across Tennessee and know its environmental problems. I have found that TVA is nature's worst enemy in this state. I wonder if TVA's Teleco-type progress continues, whether we will have a state. So that's the way he talked. That's the way he talked. And I think it's just really endearing. So that was the last section was Mack Speaks His Mind. And then in the appendices, there was so much stuff that I wanted to include. There was a copy of the resolution giving him the honorary title of Tennessee State Park Naturalist Emeritus is in there. A list of his awards and honors, a list, I'm sure it's incomplete, of conservation organizations to which he belonged, a memo to one of his higher-ups about the environmental health of the state, and then a form letter that he would send around where you could check and say which one of his programs you wanted to have for your group and when they were meeting. So I didn't really say too much about his work as the state archaeologist, but I love this quotation. Archaeology is like spider webs to hook us together, to hook the living with the past. It is important to know who lived in these hills before we came, to see what traces we may leave for those who come 600 years from now. And then he said, I hope that parks and other protected places I believe that these places hold the hope of the world. The preservation of these wild places as sacred ground is probably the best thing this country has ever contributed. We're busy fighting wars, but parks are great reservoirs of peace. I'm very optimistic. So this is my list that I showed you at the very early slide. He was really as close to a John Muir that we have ever had in this state. And I know that John Muir lived more than 100 years ago, and there were no videos. There are photos, no videos, but he wrote a lot. And so we read his writings. And I want people to be able to read Mack's writings and get some of the inspiration from that I have gotten. And this is the foundation that put out this book, let me put out this book. The website mackprichard.com is where that is, and the mission of the foundation is to engage in activities to protect and conserve the natural environment. I think that, let me see where I put the statement about Mack's legacy. Perhaps Mack's legacy is those who carry on fighting the good fight, like you guys, Tennessee Trails, encouraging the next generation to do the same thing. So thank you.